We did a lab yesterday where we collected position time data for an object moving at a constant speed. That data was emailed from the SparkView app to your school email account. Once it's in your school email account, you got to do something with that. We got to put it into a spreadsheet, delete some data, and then end up plotting a graph. Well, I'm going to walk you through that process right now of taking it from your email to that spot where you've got your graph, and sorry, you got your spreadsheet, and then walk through that process of plotting your graph for you. So right now, if you haven't done this already, everybody should be in essentially the same place as I am on my screen right now, which is your school email account. Somewhere near the top of the list of emails should be an email from either from me or from your partner or from you showing your SparkView, your Spark data. Okay? This is where mine is. I'm going to click on that. So my email, when I open it up, is going to look something like this. Yours should be essentially the same as well. You should see a couple of things, probably exported, data.txt, and then a text file right here, which we don't want any part of. It's the first one that we want right here. Now, if you had 15 trials, then you would end up having 15 exported data. Does that make sense? This time we were lucky enough to have only one trial. If you did do 2 or 3 trials, you only need to actually plot a graph for one trial. So if you can remember which one happened to be your best trial, pick that one. Okay? I've only got one. Most of you only have one. If you have more than one, pick the one that you think was the best. All right, so here's what I'm going to do to get this data into a spreadsheet. I'm going to hover my cursor over top of the attachment, exported data.txt, and then I'm going to click on the little Google Drive symbol in the bottom right-hand corner. It says Save to Drive when you hover over that. I'm going to click that button. And then it says Saved to Drive. Where do I want to move it to? Well, I probably want to move it to my classroom. I probably want to move it to a place where I'm going to be able to find it again. Okay, we've got Physics 20 Period 4, Fall 2015. That's my folder. Okay, that's what your folder is going to look like as well. I'm going to throw it in there. Okay, again, that way I'm going to remember where to find it when it comes time to import it into the spreadsheet. So I'm going to move it there. I'm going to click Move. It's there. Got it? With me so far on that? Okay, now I'm going to go into my classroom. I'm in my classroom right now as student Dickie at isidore.redeemer.ab.ca. So you guys should see essentially what I see up here. Unlike what you would see if I was in my teacher account right now. I'm going to go into my Physics 20 classroom. I'm going to go into the assignment. I'm going to open that. Notice there's some instructions here for various things like plotting graphs, transferring data from SparkView to Google Sheets, which is exactly what I'm doing right now. Okay, lots of different instructions if anything that I say today happens to go past you or you happen to forget it if you're working on it tonight or another time. I'm going to open the assignment. This is what I got. Okay, your work. I haven't done anything. I haven't done any work yet as far as the assignment goes. All I've done is email the data to myself and then downloaded the data. So what I want to do first is actually add or create a spreadsheet. So under your work in the assignment, click Add a Sheet. Now that's going to add a spreadsheet that's going to be titled, it's going to pop up in just a second, Constant Velocity Lab dash Student Dickie. Yours will be titled Constant Velocity Lab dash whatever your name is. I want to open that spreadsheet. When I open that spreadsheet, it's going to be completely blank because I just created it. Remember, we haven't imported any data yet. All we've done is saved a data file that came from the AirLink apparatus. Now we're going to import into this spreadsheet the data that you saved to your drive. The problem with the data in the way that it's formatted right now is that it's a text file. You can't do anything with a text file. So we need to put it into a spreadsheet file. We need to convert it, essentially, into a spreadsheet file. The data file that we received in our email is saved, but it's unusable as it stands right now. Now comes the time for converting that into a usable format. Okay, follow closely along with this. You're going to click File, and you're going to click Import. Now, there's going to be a whole bunch of folders here. The folder that I want to click in is the folder that I saved my last, saved that text file in, that data file in. For me, remember, I was very conscious to save it in my classroom folder, specifically my period, Physics 20 period 4, fall 2015 folder. So I'll click on that, and I should find, lo and behold, exportedData.txt. If you've lost that file, you need to find it before you go through this process. It needs to be in a place that you can find. I'm going to click on that folder. I'm going to click on that. I'm going to click Select. And then it's going to give me some options. The first option that I want to pick is Append rows to current sheet. That's important. If you don't click that, then it's going to put all of the data in one column. I don't want all of the data in one column. That's no more usable than the format that it's in right now. I want all of the data in separate columns. Now, the second setting that I want to pick is the one that's by default selected already, which is Detect Automatically. Once you've selected these two buttons, Append Rows to Current Sheet and Detect Automatically, you're going to click Import. And when you do that, in a moment, you're going to get a whole bunch of data. At least it's in different columns. It's way more data than we need. But again, at least it's separated into different columns. The next thing I want to do here is delete a whole bunch of data that I don't need, including columns C, D, E, and so on. So I'm going to select all of those columns that I don't want, which is everything but time and position. Just delete them. Now that we have our data, I want to plot a graph with this. Now follow closely along with this, because this is where you're going to get your velocity from, which, remember, was the whole purpose of this lab. What is the velocity of this toy car? This is going to give us that velocity. So what I want to do is highlight all of my data here. Don't worry about highlighting the headings. Just highlight your data. Keep highlighting. Keep highlighting. Lots of data in this particular trial here. That's okay. Just keep highlighting until you get to the end, which is going to keep going on for seemingly forever. And then once you've got all that highlighted, I want you to click Insert. I want you to click Chart. Insert a chart. Now it's going to give you a bunch of options. The option that I want to pick is this scatter plot right here. It's the third option. 1, 2, 3. It's the second on the left from the top. Pick the scatter plot. Click Insert. My graph should appear momentarily here. There it is. Now, I'm not anywhere close to being done here, because in the end, this shows me a graph of my data, but I haven't labeled any axes. I haven't labeled a title. I haven't drawn any line of best fit. I got a bunch of data points that are irrelevant here that I want to skip or that I want to delete. But at least I'm on my way. Now we got to tidy this up a little bit. First thing we're going to do to tidy it up is to create a title and label our axes. So let's click on the graph. Let's click on that little arrow in the top right-hand corner and pick Advanced Edit. That's going to allow us to enter a title. The title of my graph will be Position versus Time. The reason it's going to specifically be position versus time as opposed to time versus position is because the manipulated variable, that is the variable that appears on the x-axis of your graph, always, needs to be listed last. The responding variable, which is on the y-axis, has to appear first. We're going to scroll down, and label our axes. Notice right now, by default, I'm going to label my horizontal axis. My horizontal axis is going to be time in seconds. Then I'm going to click on the horizontal, make it vertical, and label it position. Now I'm going to update it. It should be in meters, yeah. So now I got a better looking graph. I still got a bunch of data points that are irrelevant points, extraneous points that I want to delete, but at least I've got my graph labeled. At least I've got position and time on the proper axes. At least it's starting to look something like I want to see. All right, now we're going to delete some data. It looks like my data is good from about, I don't know, about 2 seconds or so on. I'm going to make it 2.5. In other words, I'm going to go back here and delete all of my data points up to 2.5 seconds. Watch what happens when I do that. Highlight them, delete, scroll back up to my graph. Look at it now. Those first few points are just automatically deleted from my graph. I deleted those because those points appeared to be extraneous. It was a flat line. That looked to me as if I was recording data before the cart was actually moving. Now, up here, from about, looks like about 7.5, 7.6, 7.7 seconds on, something wacky is going on here. Maybe the cart got out of range of the detector. I'm not sure exactly what it was, but I'm going to delete from about 7.5 seconds on. Scroll all the way down here. Let's go from about 7.5 seconds on. Highlight all that. Click delete. That's all gone now. Go back to my graph. And look what I got. I got a pretty good straight line now. Now, those points, those are actually points, not a line. They're trying not to join the points here, but there's so many data points in there, they're kind of just jamming them together, right? So it makes it look like we've joined the points. We haven't actually done that yet. That's what we're going to do next, is not join the points per se, but draw a line of best fit. All right, now comes the time to plot a line of best fit, and from that line of best fit, get the slope, which is the velocity of the graph, which takes us back to our problem, which was to find the velocity of the toy car. So what we want to do is click on that graph again. Okay, we want to select the top right-hand corner, advanced edit again. Okay, it comes up under advanced edit. Now what we want to do is scroll down under customization. To trend line. It's at the very bottom. Now, remember that. It's at the very bottom right now. But in a moment, once I change a setting, it's not going to be at the very bottom. We're going to be able to scroll down a little bit further. Okay? So trend line, the very last thing, we're going to change it from none to linear. That's a straight line, right? It looks like it should be a straight line. So let's click linear. Look at what it's done. It's drawn a straight line through there for me. Now I can scroll down a little bit further. And now what you want to do right underneath trend line, right where it says label, is use equation. So trend line, linear, label, use equation. Let's click update. My graph is now finished. All right, graph is done. I'm going to explain what some of these numbers mean in just a moment, but before we do that, I'm going to go back into my classroom, Google Classroom, and now notice here I've got my Constant Velocity Lab student Dickie spreadsheet created. I'm going to create something else. I'm going to create a document. We're going to go back into Google Classroom, yeah, and we're going to create a doc. Now click on that document that was just created, which by the way has the same title as the spreadsheet, but you can see there's a difference. The first thing that I created a little while ago and that we've been working with for the last few minutes has been a sheet, a spreadsheet. This is a document. It's like a Word document, except it's in Google Docs format. Let's go into that document now. It's blank. Of course it's going to be blank. Let's say you've written out your problem. Let's say you've created a data table. Let's say it's time for analysis, and your analysis primarily consists of your graph. Now I want to insert my graph from my spreadsheet into the document, because in the end, the document is what I'm going to mark. So let's go back to my spreadsheet. Let's click on the graph. Let's click on the top right-hand corner, but instead of selecting Advanced Edit, let's click Copy Chart. Or alternatively, you can just select it and then go Control C. I'm going to bring that back to my document, and then I'm going to click Control V, which is going to insert that graph right into my document, the document that I'm going to submit as my final product. What comes after the analysis? If I could spell it properly, it would be the conclusion. My conclusion is, pay really close attention to what I'm about to write here. My conclusion consists of two sentences. The velocity of the toy car was found to be, or something to that effect, doesn't have to be those exact words, but something to that effect, was found to be 0.412 meters per second, period. How did I know that? Because that's your second sentence, right? In your conclusion, it's how do you know? This is known because the slope of the position versus time graph is 0.412. How did I know the slope of that graph is 0.412? Where did that come from? Take a look at the equation up here that was displayed. Y is equal to 0.412x minus 0.54. Do you guys remember from Math 9, the equation for a straight line in math? Y equals mx plus b. M stood for the slope. This is y equals m, or the slope, times x plus or minus b. So this is your slope. This is your velocity. We found the velocity of the toy car in the trial that I have to be 0.412 meters per second. If you have your own data, then your velocity is going to be different. That's okay. If you have my data that I emailed out, then you're going to have the same number, obviously. You're pretty much done your lab write-up now. There's a couple little things, right? Like you got to fill in your data, you got to write some sources of error and so on. Somebody was asking me just a second ago, what's my data? Well, this is my data, time and position. Now, in the end, you can recopy all that data, or there's a little trick that you can follow here to avoid recopying all this. But if you're going to do that, you got to be careful, because I want it to be neat. The problem with the formatting when we import it into Google Sheets is that it skips lines. You can see every second line is skipped. I don't really want that. Okay, I don't want lines skipped like that. It's fine in your spreadsheet, but in your final product, I want it to be tidier, neater and tidier. So what I can do is, instead of having all these spaces here, let me select these rows. Let me select these blank rows here. Okay, and then let's delete those rows. All right, it's better now. It's better, but I'm still going to select this one, delete it. I'm going to select this one, delete it, and so on. The alternative to this, if you don't want to delete all these rows, is to literally retype the data. I think this is easier than retyping all the data, but it's your choice. Once you've done all that, then highlight it. Okay, I'm not deleting all those right now because I just don't want to take the time to do all of them at this moment. Yeah, you're right, actually. Yeah. Yeah, you're right. That is going to be a bit quicker. So it's like selecting multiple things in any spreadsheet or Word document or any file. And in fact, on a desktop, it's select one, control, select, 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 and so on. I'm still not going to delete them all, but at this point, you're going to be able to. All right, guys. At this point, as I say, I'm not going to do all of my data, or I'm not going to take out all of those rows because I want to save a little bit of time. So what I'm going to do is select all that. I'm going to go Control C to copy it, and then I'm going to go back into my lab, and under Data, I'm going to go Control V, which is paste. Now, for me, my data table isn't going to look all that neat because I've got all those spaces. You're going to have deleted all those spaces, so it's going to be a lot tighter than mine is. You can see I've deleted the first bunch of spaces, so it's nice and tidy up here, but down here, we start seeing those empty rows again. That's what I don't want to see, because it just ends up taking way too many pages, and it's just kind of sloppy that way. So you're going to end up back here in your spreadsheet, going further than I did with deleting them, okay? Cell 11, or row 11, Control 13, Control 15, Control 17, and so on. Right-click it, right-click, delete selected rows, and then copy it once everything is deleted. Once you've got all that done, fix up the problem, tidy things up a little bit, you know, where you have spaces, where things appear at the top of the page or the bottom of the page. Go back and finish up your conclusion if it wasn't great. Go back into your sources of error at the bottom. Okay, make sure everything here in your analysis is good again. Make sure you haven't spelled any words wrong, or make sure you haven't put time versus position. Put in your sources of error, which include not just what could have been a problem, but rather what could have been a problem and how could you fix it. So a possible solution for those sources of error. Once you've got that done, you're done. Notice it says at the top here, all changes saved in Drive. Let's say I've finished. Let's say I've typed everything I want to type. I'm all finished. I can just exit this because it's automatically saved. I can go back into my constant velocity lab, and then I can click at the bottom here, Turn In. And that's what you got to do. Now, my assignment now is handed in. If I was to go on my teacher account, I would now see 26 of you guys have not handed it in. Sorry, 21 of you guys have not handed it in, and one has handed it in. That one that's handed it in is my student account. I could go back and mark student Dickie's assignment now. And then once I finished marking it, put a mark by it, and I'd hand it back to you. I'd give it back to you. Right now, you can't do anything with it because you've handed it in. But once I hand it back, you've got access to it again.